What if a plane took off, but no one was at the controls? This is the haunting tale of Helios Airways Flight 522. On August 14, 2005, a flight that started like any other ended in tragedy. Today, we'll explore what went wrong, the ghost flight phenomenon, and the final moments witnessed by many. Helios Airways Flight 522 was a scheduled journey from Larnaca, Cyprus, to Prague, Czech Republic. It was carrying 121 passengers and crew members. What happened during this flight shocked everyone and raised serious questions about aviation safety. Just minutes after takeoff, the aircraft began to climb higher. However, there was a critical issue: cabin pressure had failed. The pilots became unconscious, leaving the aircraft on autopilot. This event is now known as a ghost plane situation. In this case, the crew had failed to set the pressurization system correctly. The Boeing 737 began to climb, but passengers weren't receiving enough oxygen. As time passed, more people lost consciousness. Now, imagine the fate of those on board. The Hellenic Air Force spotted the unresponsive aircraft circling. They attempted to contact the pilots, but received no reply. The plane continued its flight, slowly running out of fuel. Witnesses on the ground reported seeing the plane. They noticed its irregular movements. As it flew overhead, it was clear something was wrong. Planes should not operate without human control. This incident drew national attention and concern. After about 2 hours of flying, the plane eventually ran out of fuel. On approaching the airport, it attempted to land, but crashed into a mountainous area. This tragic event cost the lives of all 121 people on board. The investigation revealed alarming details. The flight crew, based on previous failures, failed to adjust the system during takeoff. More training and strict guidelines were necessary. This disaster highlighted the importance of communication and teamwork in aviation. In summary, Helios Airways Flight 522 became a ghost plane due to improper pressurization. The innocent lives lost remind us of the need for aviation safety. Such incidents must never repeat themselves. Now, if you're interested in aviation history and safety, subscribe to our channel. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's honor the memory of those lost by learning from the past. Together, we can push for improved safety standards in aviation. On that fateful day, as the sun illuminated the sky, Flight 522 took off like any other, but beneath its seemingly normal exterior lurked the seeds of disaster. Minutes into the flight, passengers were blissfully unaware of the impending doom, unaware that their journey was spiraling into a ghostly silence as the crew fell unconscious. High above the clouds, the aircraft drifted, adrift in a vast ocean of uncertainty, with the ticking clock marking the seconds of suspense and horror to come. As the aircraft glided on autopilot, the cabin filled with an eerie stillness, punctuated only by the soft hum of the engines. Passengers began to notice a peculiar sensation, a slow suffocation creeping over them as the oxygen masks dangled uselessly above their heads. Fear mixed with confusion, laughter turned to whispers of dread, while solemn glances exchanged spoke volumes about the unspoken terror they all felt. As the minutes passed, the realization dawned on a few alert passengers that something was terribly amiss. Their hearts raced as they scanned the faces around them, seeking comfort in shared unease. Outside the windows, the world below shrank into a blur, oblivious to the tragedy unfolding above. Meanwhile, air traffic control scrambled to establish communication with Flight 522, their voices echoing unanswered. The chilling silence on board contrasted sharply with the urgency of the situation, amplifying the anxiety coursing through the aircraft. Each passing moment intensified their panic, as the ground appeared to vanish from sight, swallowed by the deep, blue expanse. The Hellenic Air Force, alerted to the ghost flight, mobilized quickly and dispatched fighter jets to assess the situation. As the aircraft continued its unresponsive path, the jets approached cautiously, their pilots trying to find a glimpse of life within the Boeing 737's cabin. The eerie sight of the plane circling without control sparked a mix of dread and determination in the minds of the military crew. Each second felt like an eternity, as they attempted to signal the aircraft, but their efforts were met with an agonizing silence. Time was running out, and they knew that the fate of those on board hung precariously in the balance. With concern mounting, the fighter pilots exchanged worried glances, fully aware that the reality of an aerial tragedy was unfolding right before their eyes, as they prepared for what they hoped would not be the inevitable outcome. As the fighter jets danced in formation around the helpless aircraft, the pilots strained to catch any sign of life from inside. Each passing second led to a chilling realization: the plane was a ghost, a tragic embodiment of lost control. Desperation fueled their attempts, as they maneuvered closer, hoping against hope to initiate contact or at least provide visual cues to the crew who were no longer conscious. The reality of the situation weighed heavy on them, knowing that they were witnessing a terrifying moment in aviation history, where the body of the aircraft was functional, but its heart had long since stopped beating. In the cockpit, instruments flickered with warnings, a silent testament to the turmoil that had overcome the crew. As the minutes dragged on, the plane continued its path through the sky, an ominous spectre eliciting concern from those who witnessed it. The urgency in the ground control stations surged, cultivated by the growing fear that this ghost flight was veering toward an unavoidable catastrophe. In the end, the tragic tale of Helios Airways Flight 522 serves as a stark reminder of the crucial need for vigilance in aviation safety. The haunting silence that enveloped the aircraft will echo in the memories of those who witnessed such tragedies, urging us to honor the lost by never forgetting their story. As the fighter jets continued to circle above, tension filled the cockpit of each plane, where pilots exchanged urgent radio communications, sharing the gravity of the situation. They speculated on possible rescue missions, brainstorming ideas to regain control of the ghost flight, all while the unresponsive Boeing 737 drifted like a lost soul in an ocean of blue. Time seemed to stretch, each heartbeat amplifying the dread overshadowing both the military pilots and the helpless passengers below. What they couldn't fathom was the collective experience of fear, confusion, and impending doom that loomed over the aircraft, untouched by the earth below, a poignant reminder of the fragile nature of life and control in an unforgiving sky. The eerie atmosphere inside the cabin thickened as more passengers succumbed to unconsciousness, some slumping over in their seats, leaving the remaining alert individuals grappling with terror and desperation. In a last-ditch effort, a few courageous souls pushed the oxygen masks down in hopes of revitalizing their fading strength, but the flicker of hope was overshadowed by the chilling dimness that threatened to engulf them all. Meanwhile, the military pilots, witnessing the deteriorating condition through their aircraft's cockpit windows, felt a profound mix of helplessness and determination, their minds racing to find solutions that were swiftly vanishing with each silent second. Realizing this wasn't just a flight but a ticking time bomb, they knew that their mission had shifted. It was now about preserving human lives against the stark backdrop of fate's uncompromising design. The urgency crystallized in their hearts. Could they devise a way to signal the passengers or awaken the slumbering crew before it was too late? As the ghostly aircraft continued its uncontrolled flight, the shadows of despair deepened among the remaining passengers. A brave woman, fueled by instinct and desperation, rose from her seat and began to shout in a vain attempt to rouse her fellow travelers from their stupor. "Wake up! Please, we need help!" Her voice echoed through the cabin, a desperate plea that battled against the suffocating silence. A few heads turned, eyes filled with confusion as they grasped the gravity of her words, yet many remained trapped in a haze of unconsciousness. Outside, the fighter jets pressed closer, their pilots frantically signaling, using flares and maneuvers to attract any flicker of attention, all while knowing the terrifying truth: every moment was ticked away, every second inching towards potential catastrophe. As the chaos unfolded inside the cabin, a sense of desperation clawed at the remaining conscious passengers. They were living an unimaginable nightmare aboard a ghost plane with no one to guide it. The ever-looming threat of their fate hung heavy in the air, exacerbated by the alarming silence from the cockpit. Just then, a young father, gripping his daughter's hand tightly, decided to break the overwhelming stillness. "Stay strong, sweetheart. We'll be okay," he reassured her, though doubt seeped into his voice. The girl's innocent eyes brimmed with fear, and she could only nod in response, grounding herself in her father's presence. Meanwhile, the military jets executed daring maneuvers, desperately attempting to catch the crew's attention. They unleashed flares, darting across the skies in brilliant flashes, hoping somehow to awaken a sense of reality in those on board. As the reality sunk deeper into the hearts of the passengers, an agonizing stillness replaced any dwindling hope. Just moments later, the Boeing 737 began a gradual descent, as if the aircraft itself sensed the impending demise of its unwitting passengers. The stark realization hit everyone: time was slipping away, and they were mere spectators to their own fate. The young father, feeling a surge of determination amidst despair, addressed his fellow passengers: "We need to try. Let's work together, we can do this." His voice rang through the cabin, igniting a spark of unity among the few who remained aware. The shared spirit among the passengers began to grow, a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. Most of them, still teetering on the edge of consciousness, struggled to muster their strength, yet there was newfound resolve in their collective will to survive. In the cockpit, the few flickering lights indicated an urgency that had once been unnoticed, but now a frantic energy surged through the disoriented pilots. It was becoming increasingly clear to the military pilots that it was a race against time, with every action weighed against both the hope of revival and the dreadful possibility of fatality. As the cockpit lights dimmed, dwindling fuel began to present another stark reality: the time for rescue was quickly evaporating, overshadowed by anxiety for those on board and dread for the crew's fate. The story of Helios Airways Flight 522 was no longer just an isolated tragedy, it was a multifaceted narrative intertwined with the survival of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. It became a tale of bravery, desperation, and the lengths to which people would go to fight for their lives, even in the most dire circumstances. With the Boeing 737's descent continuing, adrenaline coursed through the veins of those left conscious. The young father's voice had stirred something deep within them. Each passenger began to rouse, shaking off the weariness that threatened to engulf them completely, fueled by the urgency radiating from their shared will to survive. They united, driven by the desire to reach out to the unknown, to awaken those who were lost in the haze, trying to shout against the shadow of despair looming overhead. "We need to find the controls," someone shouted, their words filled with new determination, igniting a flicker of hope that glimmered like a distant star in the dark sky. As they huddled together, their voices intermingled, creating a chorus of unity: "Help us. We need someone to take control." The camaraderie began knitting a fragile web of strength, a mutual understanding that they were fighting not only for their own lives but for each other in this harrowing experience. Outside, the fighter jets continued their desperate dance, their pilots straining to catch any sign of life from the cockpit while the heart-wrenching realization hung heavy in the air. With each passing second, the threat of inevitable disaster loomed larger, pressing upon the souls on board and those witnessing the events unfold below. As the young father steadied himself, he felt his daughter squeeze his hand tighter, and he wrapped his arm around her protectively, whispering, "We're in this together, just hold on." The urgency in their surroundings was palpable, each heartbeat marked a countdown, a reminder of the inevitable conclusion approaching with terrifying swiftness. Powerless to alter the course of fate, the military pilots exchanged grim, determined glances, realizing that time was not on their side, and they were acutely aware of the fragile nature of existence. The aircraft, a lifeless shell adrift in the sky, exemplified the delicate balance of life and tragedy, a narrative barred from completion, fading into the depths of despair and the haunting echo of unrealized dreams. With the ground drawing nearer, the shared energy within the cabin prompted a crescendo of voices filled with urgency and fear, their sounds cutting through the suffocating silence like a beacon. They rallied together, bolstered by hope, turning despair into determination as the haunting flight of Helios Airways Flight 522 spiraled toward an impending conclusion that would bring the story of their fight into the annals of history. As they rallied together, a momentary wave of clarity cascaded through the passengers, igniting an instinctual determination to survive. The young father led the charge, urging those around him to look for anything that might aid them in taking back control. "There's got to be a way. If we can reach the cockpit, we can do this." The atmosphere shifted, driven by a collective rush of adrenaline as they swiftly moved toward the front of the cabin. Each step felt monumental, fueled by desperate hope as they pressed on against the chilling reality of their ghostly flight, echoing the urgent pleas for life amidst the profound silence enveloping them. As the aircraft continued its descent, the unity among the passengers grew stronger. They were not merely individuals aboard a sinking vessel, but a collective force driven by an unwavering will to live. Together, they pushed towards the cockpit, determined to awaken the pilots from their unconscious states. In that moment, they represented the indomitable spirit of humanity, a fragile yet fierce affirmation that hope could endure even in the most